so today we're going to show you a bunch of demonstrations with liquid nitrogen. And you might say, what the heck is liquid nitrogen? Liquid nitrogen is a liquid, obviously, that it's just nitrogen, it's just an N2 molecule, but it's super, super cold. Normally, nitrogen's a gas, 80% of our atmosphere is nitrogen. So when I get this from a welding supply store, they have a special way of using pressure and they shunt the heat out of it and stuff. They get it down to like negative 196 degrees or colder, and it turns into liquid. I have a special container that I keep it in. Here, I'll get the container quick. It's a big container called a Dewar flask. There it is. And so this container, there's this really super cold liquid in there. We'll get that out and do some demonstrations with it in a little bit. And that flask keeps it cold. I'll explain that in a little bit. So it boils. It actually boils to a gas at negative 196, which means if it's liquid now, it must be below this. It's like a negative 196 or colder. So it's that cold right now. Now here's the thing though. If I put something in there, whatever I put in there, I'm going to put a banana in there and stuff. Throw some bananas, whatever in there. And this will become that temperature as it heats it up. As this heats up, that gets colder. So we're going to have things get super, super cold in there. In case you don't know what negative 196 degrees is Celsius, it's 77 degrees above absolute zero. So it's getting really close to absolute zero. Very dangerous. Stick your hand in there and you got some serious tissue damage in 2 or 3 seconds. Then that's negative 320 degrees if you're a Fahrenheit weenie, whatever. And then it'll actually freeze. It actually freezes in about 14 degrees colder. So it has a 14 degree liquid range only before it freezes totally. And that's about 63 degrees above the absolute zero. Okay, so 1 or 2 more quick things before we go back and look at some stuff. So how does it stay liquid in here? Again, in this container, it stays a liquid, but when I take it out of there, you're going to see it furiously boiling. It's going to turn into a gas within like 10 minutes. It's going to be really, really fast. It'll evaporate really fast, but in here, it can sit here for a month or 2. When I touch it, it's not cold. Why is that possible? If this is like a regular bucket, like if I kept it like in here, this would be frozen solid and I'd get frostbite touching it, so there must be something special with this. What we have in here is, it looks like this inside. It's a big glass jar with the aluminum casing around it. So the aluminum casing just keeps it protected. So like physically, if you hit it, it won't shatter the glass. But this is glass otherwise. It's a double wall of glass with a vacuum between it. And if you want a good insulator, the best insulator in the universe is the absence of anything. Now, if there's no matter in here, it can't transfer heat through there. So there's a couple of little plastic support things in here maybe sometimes, but otherwise, basically, it's a vacuum. Then you have your liquid N2 inside there. And as long as I keep it sealed and stuff like that, it's no problem. Okay, so that's your general bucket. Again, this thing's about $1,000. If I had to buy another one of these, it's about $1,000. You can't go to, a lot of the teenage boys are like, oh, I gotta get a hold of this stuff. Oh, you can't just take a bucket like this or an ice cream bucket to the welding supply store and say, hey, I want some of this, fill it up. They'll just tell you get out of the store because number 1, you gotta be 18. Number 2, you have to have a reason for it, But also you have to have this because if I took this home in my car, say if I said, fill this with liquid nitrogen and I take it home in my car, by the time I get home it'll be all evaporated. And the problem is, if it's evaporating fast, it's giving off lots of nitrogen gas. And if my car would fill up with nitrogen gas, you'd pass out and crash a car. So you have to have it with something like this. They won't even sell it to you. If you don't have this when you walk in a welding supply store, they won't even sell it to you. So just for all the young teenage boys who are like, oh, this is going to be fun. No. Okay, so really quick before I get to the demonstrations here. Normally nitrogen is clear. Now look in the air right now. The nitrogen, you can't see it. It's clear. Well, when I pull this out of here, you're going to see this white fog everywhere. Well, the white fog is the white vapor you see. It's not actually the liquid nitrogen. It's so cold that there's the humidity in the air, the water vapor in the air is condensing into a white cloud. So it's the same as a white cloud outside. So it's just actually water vapor like fog. So fog is just water vapor that gets cool at night and makes this the same white cloud you'll see with these demonstrations a little bit. And then liquid nitrogen is used for movie effects. If you go like to Disney World and stuff, they'll have these indoor water, like the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. they'll actually have big, huge tanks of liquid nitrogen, like the big, like 20-foot tall tanks of liquid nitrogen, pumping the stuff into the water. It pumps into the water and it makes this cool white fog inside the building and stuff. And stage movie effects and stuff like that, stage effects for Broadway shows and stuff. And then, last thing is you got to be careful. You can't. Another reason why you can't have a container like this that seals, put it in there, is when it evaporates into a gas. The gas has about 500 times more volume. Takes 500 times more volume than the liquid. So if I would put it in here and seal it up really good, it'll build up pressure and explode. So an explosion day, our favorite explosion, the big finale outside, is we take a pop bottle, a plastic pop bottle, put some liquid nitrogen in there, seal it, drop it, and run, and eventually it's just going to build up pressure. As it evaporates, it gets like 500 times more volume. So a little bit of liquid makes a huge volume. It's going to just explode. So this container specifically, it never actually seals. There's no screw top on it. It just kind of sits in there like that. If I screwed it in there and some of it would evaporate, it'd explode. So I wouldn't want that. Okay, so let's go back and look at some fun demonstrations. All right, so let's do some demonstrations of liquid nitrogen. See how things behave in a super, super cold environment. Okay, so first of all, I need to take this room temperature beaker and put some liquid nitrogen in it. And again, when I pour it in there, you're going to see it furiously boiling because this is so hot. Remember, this boils at negative 196. This is now like 20 degrees Celsius. So it's going to just boil like crazy. It's going to, well, you'll see it here. You can see it boiling away. It's just, again, the glass is so hot that it's making the liquid nitrogen boil. But eventually it'll subside a little bit. When the glass starts getting colder, I can feel the glass getting colder and colder. I gotta be careful not to touch it for long now because I get frostbite. But I can see the frost going on the outside. You can see that, again, that this white stuff is actually the water vapor in the air cooling, the fog type effect. Okay, and it's starting to slow down now. The glass is getting super, super cold now. Okay, the glass is basically at negative 196 degrees now, so it's it's super cold. I can't touch it for more than a second, but it's very, 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 very cold. The top's not so bad, but okay. So let's start messing with some stuff here. Let's put a balloon in there. So now again, the balloon itself, this is full of nitrogen and oxygen, and both of those will actually liquefy because of the cold temperature there. So it's actually gonna not just shrink the balloon. Remember, with gases, colder gases get smaller, smaller, smaller. This is actually going to liquefy the gases in here. So it's going to be like completely evacuated. So I got to take this and just put it in there and get the whole thing immersed in there. So it's basically like an empty balloon now with a little drop of liquid in it. The drop of liquid is actually the oxygen and nitrogen in the atmosphere here. So I pull it out and it's like empty. It looks like empty. But as it warms up, sometimes little micro cracks form in it, but otherwise it'll usually go back to normal. Here, I'll do it again. Sometimes it can actually freeze and thaw, maybe like 3 times or so, but that one kind of wimped out on us the first time. Got to be careful not to crack it. Once the rubber in the balloon is cold enough, it's like fragile. It's like can shatter like glass. So try to pull it out carefully without putting any cracks in it. Alright, it went back to normal without popping that time. Oh, well, never mind. Okay, so, stupid balloon. Okay, so next. Let's just go show what liquid nitrogen does when it burns. Okay, this is going to be a really neat, explosive demonstration here. So I'm going to get this hot. Check it out. Oh, crap. No, let's try it again. Wait, let's try it again. It's supposed to explode this way. Crap, no, it's actually not gonna do anything, I was just kidding. The liquid nitrogen's a very stable gas. Like 80% of our atmosphere is nitrogen. When forest fires burn, it's not the nitrogen's actually a suppressant. The nitrogen prevents fires. It's actually, the 20% of the oxygen in the atmosphere is what burns. So actually this is an environment of pure nitrogen. So when that match was going in there, it went out. If I stuck my nose in there and started breathing in, I'd pass out. There's no oxygen in there. So the fire here, one more time really quick, it'll just go out and just poof. So it's a fire suppressant. So you can't burn anything in nitrogen gas, basically, or very few things. Okay. Next. Okay, so we have Valentine's Day coming up here. And actually, no, Valentine's Day was already, things are late this year. Yeah, Valentine's Day was a month ago already, so, but, you know, you guys are high school students and stuff, and maybe your Valentine gives you a flower, and you're like, oh, this pretty, whatever the heck this thing is here, lily or whatever, oh, it's so pretty, I'm gonna preserve it forever. Oh, touching, cute little whatever, yeah, whatever. But you want to preserve this thing, so say, I'm gonna put it in liquid nitrogen, that'll preserve it forever. Okay, so let's freeze it in liquid nitrogen. The flour in there, get it all good and frozen. You're saying to yourself, oh, I'm going to love this person forever, my high school sweetheart, oh, precious, oh. And you freeze your flour so it's preserved forever, and the next day they break up with you, ah! Okay, so obviously that doesn't work very well. Now, again, it's like frozen like glass right now. It's the water. Flours like this are made out of mostly water. And water, of course, is going to freeze solid. So when I hit it, or smash it, it just shatters. But if I get it back to normal again, let me warm this up here. Melt the water again, it goes back to being squishy. It goes back to being, squishy, whatever. But here's the thing: even if I put it in there, and I took it out and let it thaw back to normal, it's still damaged. Just like this, it wouldn't be a pretty flower anymore, like these pretty flowers back here. Because you guys probably know, when water freezes, it expands. Think of a cell in your body like a grape. I'll just I'll drop 2 grapes in there, and just keep 1 grape. So your cells are kind of like a grape. A cell is a sack of water with a bunch of sugars and proteins and whatever, all starches and stuff in there, whatever's in there, DNA and RNA, whatever. There's a bunch of chemicals in there, but it's basically just a balloon of water. Well, you guys know if you freeze water, water expands. So what will happen here is it actually breaks. So like the 2 grapes that are in here, they're actually cracking. So instead of being like, like a nice, I can't just like freeze this grape and then carefully thaw it and have it go back to normal. All the cell structure is popping and breaking. So that's the same with my hand. I put my hand in there and say, okay, my hand's in there. I pull it out and you thaw it out. My skin's dead. All the cells pop. All the cells are popping and stuff. And now you have necrotized tissue. It's dead. So you can't just like thaw it. So this flour was screwed. The second I put it in there, there's massive cellular damage. All these petals, actually you can see the ones that are thawing right now, they're very limp and squishy, and they're starting to turn brown. The exposed when the cell pops, the sugars are exposed to oxygen and it actually starts rusting. So let's pull out one of these grapes. Yeah, I didn't do anything to them. This just happened naturally. Cool. They cracked. You see in this little camera here, it's cracked there. That wasn't me, that was just the thing itself just popping. So this little piece fell off there. Here's another one. It also cracked. So again, that would be all your cells. All your cells would have holes and cracks like that. So you can't just like freeze your skin and say, oh, I'm going to come back to life, whatever. Your tissue is destroyed. So you got to be careful with this stuff. So you can't thaw something and have it come back to life later. There's all these bozos that put money into saying, this cryogenic freezing and stuff. Let's freeze this guy's brain or whatever, and when they find a way to cure his disease, we'll thaw the brain and it'll come back to life. No, that's idiocy. That's just the cells are all broken and stuff, so you can't come back to life from that. Okay, notice I mentioned before the movie special effects. So movie special effects, like when you see the water hitting it, the cold liquid nitrogen freezes that. So that's just, the water from my breath freezing. So if I put this in a bucket of water, it'll make a bunch of steam and stuff like that. So we can take this. So let's take this over to the sink over here. Let's put that in there to get this nice, cool fog. Whoa, whatever. It's got they use this like in the the Phantom of the Opera stage to have this you know, like this misty lake thing or whatever going. So it's kind of fun, you know, whatever. Okay, so yeah, that's just the water vapor that's evaporating out of here, condensing because it's so cold. Okay, then you can see the mad scientist special effects. You see these old 1930s or 40s movies where they have this mad scientist, like this liquid nitrogen in there, and they're like making this werewolf formula, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, or whatever, and not just like liquid nitrogen or dry ice in this here, and it just kind of, you know, they'll like drink it, whatever, and they'll turn into a werewolf or something dumb, but kind of fun to breathe in. It's super, super cold. There we go. Kind of chilly in the nose there, but yeah, so. Cool, all right. So we have a banana, okay, so put it, again, this is like your tissue and stuff, so I'll put a banana in there. Just let it sit for a little while. I'll put this in there. And while that's going, I will also put some rubber tubing. This is this nice flexible rubber tubing, regular old whatever rubber tubing there. But again, now this is flexible. It's not water based. It's not like cells, like, you know, like the flower and the grape ore. It's just a plastic type material that's flexible. But if you get things like this cold enough, they will no longer be flexible. So I'm just going to put this in there. Let it sit for a little while. Let it cool down. Now the thing is, this otherwise flexible rubber stuff will actually be like glass. I'm going to take a hammer and shatter it. I'm going to shatter some rubber tubing because it got that cold. Just pull it out. And now this is actually sharp enough right now. I could actually cut myself with it. If I cut my hand, it's sharp enough now to do that. It's like jagged glass right now. But if I get it warm, back to normal, it goes back to being squishy rubber again. It's not dangerous anymore. So again, as long as it's cold, it's like jagged glass. But it's you know, it's back to rubbery. Again, there's no damage here to this, you know, besides me hitting it with a hammer. But there's no damage. I can freeze and thaw this because there's no water in it. It's the water that causes problems. So when the water in your cells expands, it shatters. That's where tissue is dangerous, but didn't really hurt this at all. Another thing I can show is like paper. So you can so paper here itself is, you know, pretty flexible, obviously, you know, paper or whatever. But again, if I get paper this cold, like if I go like this, it doesn't shatter. I'm going to get cold, and again, it'll be like more rigid. I can shatter the paper. There's still a banana in here. I'm cooling the banana down properly. So get the paper super, super cold, but again, when I go get it back to room temperature again, it's just back to squishy paper again. So, you know, it's not water based, so it can be thawed and frozen without damage, unless I damage it when it's frozen. Okay, so the banana. You might not think of bananas this way, but take this banana, take this nail, and see? Fun. Take that. It's really cold. Shatter it. But again, it'll go back to being normal. Now, again, this is water-based, water cellular-based. So all it shatters. It looks like normal banana here, besides these flowers on there. But actually, there's a lot of damage. When this thaws, and if I let it sit for a couple hours, again, it's going to start oxidizing. All the sugars in here are now exposed to the air, and it's going to start turning brown. So this will be like you know, it'll start turning like brown or black and get all nasty and slimy, and it's just going to be like, instead of like normal, you know, banana. So like here it wasn't frozen. It's like if I come back tomorrow, this will be normal, and this will be all blackened and slimy and stuff. So there's this, again, that would be your skin. If I did it with my hand, my skin would be dying, necrotized tissue, you know, dead and whatever. So you gotta be careful with this stuff, you know. Be smarter than me. Okay, we have a ping pong ball that has two little holes punched in it. We took a pin and stuck two little holes in it, and I'm gonna put it in liquid nitrogen and fill it up if I can get it below the surface. If I can get some liquid nitrogen inside, it'll be cold liquid nitrogen, but once I take it out, it's going to start boiling. You know, the liquid nitrogen will boil, and there's out of the two little holes, the little holes are biased sideways. It's going to be like little jet engines on the side. So I'm basically filling it with liquid nitrogen right now. I'm going to get it below the surface. Filling it with liquid nitrogen. So it's kind of like it has like almost like a fuel tank of liquid nitrogen. And when it evaporates, it's going to just kind of start spewing out the sides, and it's going to spin really fast. I'll make a little trough for it so it can't like get out. And there we go. So let it start. It's going to start spinning. And it just you can't see the lines. It's spinning super fast right now. It's actually this. But now it's going to start slowing down. You can start seeing it'll slow down. So it actually had like little jet engines off the side of evaporating liquid nitrogen. The pressure inside, the pressure built up inside and spewed out the sides. Okay, so again, there's just two little holes somewhere on the side. Like right there is one of them, I think. And the pressurized stuff spewed out at an angle, which then caused it to start spinning. So it was like a super fast spinning top, like zzz, for a little while there. Cool. Okay, let's pour a little bit. Let's pour a little bit of liquid nitrogen on the counter. You can see it. The counter is so hot again. It boils at negative 196. The counter is about 20 degrees right now. I'm going to pour some on the counter, and it's actually going to like hover on a cushion of its own evaporating gases. It's going to like frictionlessly move around the counter because of the heat of the counter. You can see those little blurbs moving around there. Blurbs moving around. Get back over there. There's a little guy right there moving around. So it's kind of interesting. Again, it's actually not even touching the counter. The counter is so hot that it's just like hovering above the counter. There's a little guy just kind of hovering frictionlessly over the counter. All right. So I think there's one more then. One more that's not very smart. My wife yells at me every year for doing this. So like I mentioned, you don't want to freeze your tissue. Again, if you stick your hand in there, you got some serious tissue damage. This grape, if I had the grape in there, I took it out and I threw it in my mouth, it would be so cold it would like fuse to your tongue and cause some major cellular damage to your tongue. You guys all saw the Christmas Story movie, you know, Christmas Story, where the guy sticks his tongue to the flagpole and he's like, you know, stop. You know, same thing here. This is actually, but this is much colder than a flagpole could ever be. So this could actually cause some, you know, some serious damage that was on your tongue. So, so just for whatever reason, I'm gonna put a Twinkie in here. Twinkie, bad for you. Okay, and a Twinkie's gonna get cold like always. Again, the glass is just really cold. You gotta be careful. The top is kind of warm, but the bottom is like super cold. I'd get frostbite just touching the bottom there. Okay, so I got this Twinkie here. Now, this would normally be considered stupid, so don't do this yourself. I'm not that smart a guy, so whatever. Cold. Okay, now, that wasn't smart. Again, you don't usually want to put things in your mouth. Again, there's a big difference though between the grape and this. This grape is has a lot more water in it and stuff. This is a very fluffy air-filled cake, so it didn't have it didn't take much heat to warm it back up. So, you know, so it doesn't do as much damage to the tongue. Plus, I don't know if you saw this, when I did that, I was like constantly like breathing out, getting nice, fresh, warm air in there to keep it from cooling, and I was also turning it around my tongue so it didn't just like, you know, sit on the tongue. I was like constantly rotating it around while breathing around, so it didn't really sit on the tongue very much. Now, that being said, my tongue is very numb right now. It always does this where my tongue gets like, I'm gonna have a hard time tasting food for the next couple of days. I don't know if I take a couple layers of skin off or something, but it's kind of, it does damage the tongue a little bit, so it's, you know, but whatever, it's for science, so it's fun. Okay, so that's just kind of, winky. Okay, yeah. Anyway, okay. So, that's liquid nitrogen. Don't play with liquid nitrogen unless you're well, at least smarter than me at least.
Okay, so that's liquid nitrogen day. So it's kind of, again, hopefully fun to see how this stuff, this super cold stuff behaves. Again, it's very dangerous. So you can't even get it unless you just have a special flask like this. So, so let's hope that was kind of interesting. So, all right, goodbye.